it by myself. I have two good friends of mine who organize this event with me. So yeah, I could not do this without them, that's for sure. But I was kind of unsure. Basically, our convention is, our weekend tickets are sold out. We only have like maybe 18 Saturday tickets left right now. So being at Ravenwood, we're kind of very small. But anyway, we started in September 2012. We had a bunch of us went to this convention in Atlanta, Dragon Con, and it's very large. And they didn't really have like anything going on Game of Thrones wise. So after the fact, we decided to put our own thing together. And originally it was going to be just kind of a small gathering of friends, and we were just going to go to Ravenwood and get some rooms and hang out for the weekend and talk about Song of Ice and Fire and Game of Thrones. And it just kind of exploded. Ravenwood was really willing to work with us and really into the idea of us renting out the whole property. So we had to, and at that point we decided, okay, well, we'll sell some tickets, hopefully. And we didn't have any sort of budget, obviously, because it started out the way it did. So we had no advertising budget or whatever, and we took to the internet and posted actually several Columbus like local websites, and Reddit has subreddits for Song of Ice and Fire and Game of Thrones. So we posted there, and a lot of like Twitter and Tumblr and Facebook and everything. And we had a lot of people that found us on Reddit, and a lot of people that found us just by like Googling. I don't even know why they randomly were Googling, Song of Ice and Fire conventions, but that's what, we had a big group of people from, I think it was Illinois, that came down just from a Google search. But yeah, so having no budget or anything definitely made it interesting in terms of trying to raise the money to pay Ravenwood for the weekend. But we had a lot of people from Ohio come, obviously, because it's right there in the Hocking Hills, and we chose Ravenwood really at the time because we wanted a themed location. We thought it would be fun to do something not just at a hotel in the city or something like most conventions. And Ravenwood happens to be a good middle ground. We had one organizer from Michigan, and then the other two of us are from South Carolina. So yeah, it was a good 7-hour drive, I think, for all of us. But we did have a lot of local people from Ohio there. And one of the things Graham had asked me to talk about was the type of people that our convention particularly attracts. So we had, because it was really, it's a convention for book fans. Like, we pretty much on our Facebook group and everything say, if you haven't read the books, you're going to be spoiled. So you're going to know what's coming up in the show and everything, because we're kind of no holds barred. We expect that everybody has read at least the 5 main books. We did have a few people who came who were just show fans, and I think they kind of generally stayed away from the discussions, the roundtable panels that we had. But other than that, we mostly people who read the books, and we had a couple. Actually, one person in particular came pretty much simply because he wanted to play the board game with other people. Like, we actually had a board game tournament. So I'm not. His name is Amin, and he works with the podcast of Ice and Fire. It's the main Game of Thrones, Song of Ice and Fire podcast, and they're really funny, and the people that do it are very knowledgeable. But yeah, he pretty much. He was probably the only person who came simply because he wanted to play that board game. But we had a few people who participated in the board game tournament, which was fun. And then one thing that really surprised me pleasantly was the Song of Ice and Fire Game of Thrones fans. They can be very kind of in your face in terms of online discussion on the subreddits, on Tumblr, on Westeros.org, all these fan sites, they can get pretty heated. So it was really nice. I'm hoping that it was actually the people that we had being, great people. I think that's probably what it was. But we had, I think 6 discussion panels throughout the weekend, and it was, the attendees were really, they really participated. And originally we were, they were supposed to be like panelists, and we thought we'd just have kind of Q&As at the end. But because we were so small, we had about 65 people last year, maybe 60. What was nice about it was that, people were able to talk with us. So this year we're actually changing the way we were doing our discussions. They're not going to be panels at all. It's literally going to be roundtables with like maybe a moderator just to keep things, under control, so they say. But, knowing how Song of Ice and Fire and Game of Thrones fans can be online, it was really great, to see that in person. At least the people we had there were all. We got into some really good discussions and debates. Some of them were just funny, about crazy theories that probably won't ever happen. But in general, everybody was really nice to each other, and even if they disagreed, it was never an issue, which was nice to see. The other thing is, I mentioned we have a Facebook group. We have a website, and originally we had discussion boards on the website, but people don't really use discussion boards anymore. I mean, not like for a small event like this. So our Facebook group kind of exploded well before the convention ever happened, and what it created was like a community of people who knew each other without having ever met, because we'd already been posting silly things, silly Game of Thrones themed things, and having discussions on and talks about what we were going to be doing at the convention on our Facebook group. So before we ever even met most of these people, we were Facebook friends with them and felt like we knew them, which 10 years ago that wouldn't have happened. But so yeah, it definitely created more of a community from our part. And after the convention, everybody shared their pictures there, and we continued to discuss, show things and everything on there, and get harped on about when we're coming out with our schedule by certain people. So yeah, it's definitely, not only did it help us become a community before the event even happened and before we all met each other, but it's helped us keep that up after the fact as well. Now, in terms of like our convention compared to other Song of Ice and Fire conventions, there's actually, like, so far as I know, 3. There's our convention here in Ohio, which, like I said, is mostly book focused, and we have discussion panels, and we have a little bit of like LARPing, I guess you could call it. We have a tournament, and it's foam swords and archery. We look at archery contests and everything. Which we really didn't think would be as popular as it was, but last year it definitely took off to the point where we've sectioned out a better part of the day for it on Saturday. So we do have Saturday tickets left, so if anybody wants to come see the tournament, that's what it is, because it is really hilarious when you have guys dressed up as Jaime Lannister and Jon Snow and Robert Baratheon fighting each other with foam swords. And then there's ThroneCon in London, which is completely show-based. Like, they don't really have, I don't even know if they really have discussion panels or anything there. They have a lot of the actors from the show, and they do like Q&As with them about, them being on the show, and it's pretty much just a couple days of hanging out and getting to meet Game of Thrones actors, which is really, really cool. But it's very different. It's a normal convention at a convention center. I think this year it's probably the Heathrow Airport. So there's that one. And then Days of Ice and Fire is put on by FFG, who makes the board game, the Game of Thrones board game, and it's just a weekend of board game tournaments. So that is, that the ThroneCon being completely show focused, Days of Ice and Fire being just literally a board game weekend and they may play the card game too. It's just gaming, and then us. But of course, we are pretty, really, really small. But as compared to like bigger conventions, like San Diego Comic-Con is an industry run convention, and they have a lot of Game of Thrones show stuff, and a lot of the bigger actors, Tyrion Lannister, Peter Dinklage, you know, and Lena Headey and whatnot. Kit Harington, Jon Snow, they all go to that. But good luck getting into into San Diego Comic-Con, let alone getting into those panels. And then Dragon Con is a big one. Like I mentioned, you know, it played a big part in us forming Ice and Fire Con, because when we were there in 2012, there were literally 2 official Game of Thrones Song, Ice and Fire activities, 1 book panel and 1 show panel. And this is a convention that has a couple dozen tracks and 50,000+ people. So it's kind of sad that they didn't have that much going on. And then, of course, you know, as the show has gotten bigger, and now apparently they've decided to expand, because Dragon Con last year, along with us fans who had our own like little meet and greets and stuff, they had 5 or 6 show-based panels, and I think about the same number of book panels. And then there's a bunch of other, obviously, you know, conventions where you'll see people dress up maybe, but you know, New York Comic Con, MegaCon, we're talking tens of thousands of people, and they don't have anything Game of Thrones, you know, related for activities. So we got into that niche, I guess, right at the right time. But yeah, right now we're sitting at about, you know, the maximum amount of people we can have this year is 100. We are hoping to grow, but we're never going to grow like that unless we bring them wood, which we don't want to do because they are great. And there's no castles around anywhere that we have found that offer the same type of atmosphere, but are bigger, so we're gonna do this for a while. And then generally, like in terms of, you know, Game of Thrones is a huge pop culture phenomenon right now. So again, like just the amount of interest we had for our convention last year has it's probably tripled. I mean, we have a waiting list for our tickets, and it grows on a pretty much like weekly basis. We add, you know, a person to it or whatever. And I mean, there's other, you know, obviously we've got a lot of Tolkien, you know, now that Peter Jackson's making a Hobbit movies, that's kind of become a lot bigger. I mean, like I said, we are definitely very, very much just Game of Thrones focused, but of course the same people who read these books and watch this show are going to, you know, a lot of other medieval fantasy. But again, that's kind of a great thing, is like, I was never much of a fantasy novel person. I was more sci-fi when I was younger, and reading Game of Thrones and meeting all these other fans, I definitely have gotten a lot of good book suggestions and everything based on that. But as the show continues, I mean, right now it's about to start its 4th season, and I know there's going to be 7 or 8 seasons at least. You know, so as the show continues, it's only going to get bigger, which is good. You know, it means more activities for us at other, you know, conventions. It hopefully means more things like this today, what you guys are doing here, and hopefully it will mean that Ice and Fire Con will continue for quite a long time.
What do you feel is the outcome of that event for people who are in the event? You know, where do they end up with it? What does it do for people? I mean, this is a dumb question. Those are the kinds of questions I like, because you get to
I think it, you know, for us, honestly, I met so many awesome people through this convention. It's just being able to spend that time with 60 other people who love the same thing that you love and are willing to have friendly discussions about it and discuss like this, what's going to happen next in the series and everything. I mean, everything from serious theories to joking about, you know, certain characters. If you don't take part in like the online discussions on like Reddit and stuff, it won't make any sense. But there's a lot of really ridiculous theories and jokes that get thrown around. So I mean, it's just a fun getaway. And Ravenwood has no cell phone service and no internet.
Wow.
So you are literally there, and nobody's checking their phones, nobody's checking Facebook. You know, so it really, like I mentioned, the Facebook group and how it helped us create this like community, and it being there with these people for a weekend and having, even if it's just this that you have in common with them, being a fan of the series, it's surprising how much there is to build on that. So it's definitely meeting other people, you know, and being able to spend that time with them. I mean, like I said, I've met several people who may just be acquaintances, but I've met some great friends through it. So that would probably be that otherwise.
And how many people are coming back who were there last year? Do you know?
Almost all of them.
Almost all of them. Yeah, I think we had a few who couldn't make it because of their own personal schedules. But other than that, I would say, like we had around 60 attendees, and I would say at least 45 to 50 of them are coming back for this year. So, and again, the ones who aren't are mostly because you know they couldn't, you know, it's a bad time of year for them or whatever. Which I guess was our fault for pushing it back a couple of weeks. But
Has anything happened in the last year that makes you want to do something differently, or that makes you, you know, have to do things?
I mean, you know, there were some things that we learned a lot this you know, our first year. Like I said, with the discussion panels, because we are so small, instead of having 3 people sitting at the front of the room and talking amongst themselves, we're going to do just kind of everybody gather in the Great Hall at Ravenwood, and you know, there will be a moderator, so it will kind of be, yeah, not serious, but you know, it will be more about audience participation, I think. And we've got some different activities and stuff planned that we have come up with over the past few months, but most of it was just stuff that we learned both throughout the days at the convention, and then also we had everybody fill out, well, most people filled out surveys that we handed out at the beginning of the weekend, and going through those and seeing what people liked and didn't like and whatnot was eye-opening. Yes.
I have a question about fun. What?
There's a lot of cooking.
Let's just be real about that.
Well, it's because I noticed a couple of contrasts. One was with the online community versus the way people acted when they were there.
Mm-hmm.
And my sense is that you were worried that maybe it wouldn't be as much fun because people would be more serious or more aggressive or more assertive.
Probably more aggressive.
What made the personal interaction fun in a way that the online discussions maybe weren't?
I think, to be honest, I think a big part of it was that the people who bought tickets for this, the people who would go to an event like this, are just generally even more like gregarious. You know, they may not agree with you, but they're up for like a fun debate rather than just wanting to argue with you. But I mean, in terms of like our activities weren't, you know, we had like a Vasily tournament, and we had Friday we had a beer tasting with Omegon. We actually were able to get several cases of the first Game of Thrones beer. And we did that pretty much first thing on Friday. So that was a good icebreaker. You know, everybody standing around drinking a lot of beer. And we had like nighttime activities. We played, has everybody heard of Cards Against Humanity?
Yeah.
So we had a girl who offered to print out Cards Against Westeros. And we had like a group discussion in the Facebook group and came up with all these, you know, questions and answers. And we had our, you know, Song of Ice and Fire Game of Thrones version of Cards Against Humanity. And we have another convention attendee who's actually now one of our organizers. He literally made up his own like Game of Thrones war game drinking game. And then we had karaoke, you know, so we had the discussion panels and stuff like that, but really it was like 25%, you know, serious stuff and 75%, you know, just hanging out and even when you're, you know, playing games and stuff, that was pretty much constantly just talking about Ice and Fire, you know.
There's a lot of picture taking.
Yeah, lots of pictures, you know. Almost everybody dressed up at some point in the weekend, as you know. So we had a lot of cosplay going on. We had costume contests and everything. So yeah, it was. I think that people were generally less aggressive because they were in person and not online behind a computer screen. You know, but again, I do think that a big part of it was that these are the type of people that are gonna come to events like this, people who want to hang out with other fans in person and have the chance to meet people who love what they love, rather than just arguing from a keyboard.
So I have one more question, which is, you know, a lot of the people have issues these days with fan communities where the question is, can you move that to some other place? And so, for example, with Ice and Fire Con, there's this great group. And do you ever think about the idea that these people could do something else, or that they could go somewhere else from Ice and Fire, or is it just going to have to stay with us? I realize that doesn't have to be an issue, but it's kind of interesting to me because.
You
it's
mean
one-
like getting together and like going to other events, or?
Some other manifestation that would not be about Ice and Fire directly.
Would the community exist without Ice and Fire?
It probably wouldn't in a way, but I mean, since the convention, I mean, there's been a bunch of us that have done other things together. I mean, a bunch of us, we had a bunch of people from the Ice and Fire Con that actually came to Dragon Con for the first time this year because of Ice and Fire Con. And I mean, also, you know, I'm here, honestly. Again, it probably, I wouldn't be here, obviously, if it weren't for the fandom and for that convention and the people I met. But, I mean, we have had several, you know, not Song of Ice and Fire related things that we've done. I mean, shoot, back in October, a bunch of us went to Ravenwood and just hung out for the weekend. So, just to see each other and you know, have a good time, go hiking and stuff. So.
Go out to dinner, dress like idiots.
Yeah, go out to dinner just like pirates. That had nothing to do with Song of Ice and Fire.
It's interesting because you get a very special sense of companionship. And I've worked with Fish Heads and Grateful Dead fans, you know, and there's these big questions about what happens.
Yeah.
What happens to a community where you create a sense of meaning and really love and friendship? But that was centered on this thing that takes you outside of yourself.
Yeah.
And if you take that away, you want to have that, you know, what do you do, you know, where do you go? So it's
Yeah,
very
and
fun.
I mean, that's something we had looked at, but not really seriously, only because at some point, the book series will end, and or the show series will end, and or Martin will die, and we won't get an end. Which is probably, I know, knock on wood. You know, so we have kind of discussed what's going to happen at that point, but I think the momentum would carry us forward for quite a while afterward. You know, eventually maybe if the series is done and the TV show is over and whatever, a few years after that, it may turn into what it originally was, of just friends getting together for a weekend. But I mean, we're not for profit. You know, we don't do this for money. We do it just to have something of our own, to have a way to get away and talk about this thing that we love.
Without having people looking at us like we're crazy.
Yeah.
And drinking.
Yeah, that too. But so yeah, we're not for profit. I mean, you know, and when the coffers run dry, you know, we may have to not do it anymore. But hopefully that is quite a few years in the future. I mean, at this rate, Martin's already put off the publication of the next book another couple years. So.